Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Life Unpotted. We're happy to have you here, and we just sat down to record this conversation. It's a Sunday, and we are getting ready to go on a trip to California where we are attending another retreat where we take psychedelics with our friends that run this excellent podcast, Dualistic Unity, and it's a lot of our inspiration for this journey that we've entered into, however you would describe this journey of the unknown. So we're very much looking forward to that. That's a lot of what is on our mind right now. We've gone on 2 retreats with this group, and this will be our 3rd. And there's always been a lot of profound insights. So stay tuned for those insights when we come back from that experience in a few weeks. And we'll be back the week of the 16th. So that's where you can expect those episodes. So something Sophie and I have been discussing the last 2 to 3 days as we were avoiding a lot of house tasks around our apartment, such as cleaning out our very piled up clothes on our closet floor and all that stuff. As we began organizing and getting after the just basic apartment tasks of tidying up and restocking things that keep the apartment clean, really have been discussing this idea of what do you look for when purchasing something? Because I know for the past 3 years, I haven't bought many things the way that I used to buy them. I used to buy things to fulfill a desire. I used to have a lot of anxiety around purchasing things because I didn't want to put thought into it. I just wanted to get it done. And that would lead me to be very impulsive and just buy things sporadically and then be unhappy with it once I got it. And then I went to the opposite side of the spectrum of being like, I don't want to buy anything because I don't care. I don't care about anything. I don't care if things are messy in my apartment. I don't care what my closet looks like. I don't care about any of this. But the reality is, I haven't bought new socks in a year and a half. And there is a reality of it's nice to take care of yourself with things. And I feel like I'm starting to see things differently. I used to buy certain clothes because I wanted them to be tight on me. I used to buy certain things because I wanted it to make me look a certain way. I think from taking a break from purchasing things, whether it be for household things around the house or for myself, accessories, whatever it may be, not that I even buy anything anymore. I guess what I'm trying to say is I've stopped caring about anything around me. I've been so focused on my inner world that I've not been focused on buying things. But the reality is, like I said, if your socks have holes in them, it's time to replace them. So, been looking at, how do I support things that are going to make my life more healthy? Do I want to buy things that are organic cotton? Do I want to purchase things more mindfully? How do I purchase things more mindfully? How do I purchase things that support me in my day-to-day life? Like the furniture that we have in our apartment was all bought from a secondhand store that we impulsively purchased because we just didn't have any furniture. So we just impulsively bought things and nothing really makes sense. And we were like, whatever, we don't care. But the reality is there is ways to take care of yourself and you can have intentionality with things. And I think it's so easy to live in extremes of I need everything to be perfect or I'm going to neglect everything. And I'm just really trying to see the importance of slowing down and being mindful with how you curate your life. What are you bringing into your home? Is it toxic chemicals? I think these are things I've never slowed down enough to recognize. Are there pesticides in my clothing? Like these are things I've never paid attention to. I focused on how I looked and that was it. But I think the more I slow down, the more I pay attention to how do I feel in this? Does this make me feel uptight if I'm zipped up tightly in these jeans? Why am I wearing them? Why am I constricting my body? So that's where I'm at. And Sunday thoughts are different things come to mind on a day like today. I'm prioritizing stuff around the house. So this is where my mind is at.
Well, it's interesting, like when you slow down in your inner world and you're not feeling so anxious all the time, it gives you more time to pause and to think about what do I actually want in my home, and not just in your home, but why am I wearing the clothes that are in my closet. And I think this journey, we always call it a journey, and it's just like, I don't know what the hell this is really. I just know it's just I'm being more intentional every single day to not fall victim to my mind, to not fall victim to the thoughts. And today when I went to go get acupuncture earlier, there's this place in Austin. It's a community acupuncture place. If you live in Austin, it's called South Austin Community Acupuncture. And I love getting acupuncture. It's really helped just inflammation in my body and back pain. And I had this experience where it was during the acupuncture and I found myself like drifting off kind of into what feels like the subconscious mind. Like, you know, that state right before you fall asleep when you're sleeping, but you're not dreaming yet. I felt like I was in that state. And I felt like all these, they weren't thoughts that were coming up. They were like knowings, kind of. Like they were like, I can't explain it. It wasn't a thought. It was just, I was processing all this stuff that just started coming up. And the acupuncturist, I was chatting with her and she said that, she's like, how are you? I'm like, just processing a lot of emotions as usual, just on this journey of feeling things. And that means that there's a lot of stuff to feel. And she was like, yeah, acupuncture can be really helpful when you're choosing to heal because it kind of helps your body come out of that guard it normally has where we don't allow ourselves to think about certain things. And on the note of going to the retreat soon and doing mushrooms again soon, I feel like I'm having a lot of clarity right now. It's almost like the past few weeks I've been just going through a lot of stuff and really becoming aware of a lot of stuff about myself, the way I view myself, and it just keeps on getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And what I was experiencing today when in the acupuncture place was like, wow, these thoughts that I experience every day of racing thoughts, of fears, of anxieties, of I have to do this or I have to do that, are not who I am. And not only are they not who I am, but they're not what I want. They're not actually what I feel about myself. If I feel so uncomfortable about what I just posted on social media, that's not what I really feel about myself. I think there's a lot of stuff that I create that's really beautiful. And I think that life is really beautiful. But it almost feels like my mind is at war sometimes with this other side of me. And I guess I just am seeing so clearly when you kind of finally reach this point of clarity. And I guess clarity means my body's more relaxed, my mind's more relaxed. I'm just more at ease in the moment. I feel like I'm on a vacation. You're able to really see when you pay attention that, holy shit, like, if I listened to those thoughts, I wouldn't keep moving forward. If I listened to the thoughts that said that video on your Instagram stories you're sharing is complete bullshit and everyone thinks you're a weirdo, like this visceral feeling that comes up, I wouldn't keep moving forward. And if I listened to the thoughts that said, you live in Texas, why did you move here? Why are you living here? Oh, you're on this path, you left your job. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life? That's not me. But it's easy for me to say that in this moment because I'm relaxed. And I guess I'm just really seeing that it's so easy to spend our lives believing the thoughts. So we started off talking about the home and cleaning products, but it is all connected because it's all on this journey of just slowing down and becoming aware of, why does my life reflect so much fear and anxiety? And I don't want to live that way anymore.
Well, I resonated with what you said about realizing you don't have to believe your thoughts this morning. Like, I appreciated how you came to this conversation and you started talking after I was talking, and I'm like, I can't catch my breath. This means my body's anxious, and you're relaxed. But I could believe right now, or I could agree with the fact that my body is feeling a little dysregulated, that sitting down to talk makes me aware of the dysregulation in my body. And I can cling or settle on that idea and let it grow bigger and focus on it. Or I can just be aware that it's here and I can just keep going about it, but not give it any attention. So I think it's an interesting topic to think about, a powerful one to think about. You don't have to give attention to the thoughts that you're having. And by thoughts, it can also be a visceral feeling. This can be applied to anger, frustration, emotions that oftentimes you want to project outwardly or you want to talk about or you just want to get off of you. I think there's some feelings that you just want to get off. I think some feelings you like go inward. I feel like when you feel sad, it's like you melt into it, you feel sad. But there's some of these emotions of like anxiety or frustration or anger and how by feeding into them, you project them outward. So I just experienced firsthand while you're talking about not really feeding into your thoughts, what it means to just sit with it. And you don't have to agree with your thoughts. You can, I don't want to say resist them because that's not the right way to put it, but like protest them. Like you can be like, all right, I hear you, but I'm not going to have a response to that right now. I'm just going to let it sit and it's not comfortable, but I'm going to act like I'm not experiencing that because I am experiencing it on an internal point of view, but I don't have to let anyone around me know that I'm feeling that because eventually I'm going to get lost in the conversation or lost in something outside of this thought that's going to override this thought altogether. And that is something that rings true in our lives a lot. If we just let that thought ride in the background without giving it attention, eventually it's going to drop off. But the alternative is we focus so much on it and it becomes bigger. And why do you think it is that we do that? Do you think it's that if we focus on this, we think it's going to alleviate it? Or is it because we want to hold on to it because it is something that's certain? The thoughts that are painful that we believe about ourselves, like you said, like when you post something on social media and you feel like, oh, I shouldn't have posted that. That's so weird. Why does a version of ourselves want to hold on to that thought? Is it just programming? Is it just something that's habitual? Is it nothing but just what we habitually have done?
It's so interesting because like today when I was in the car after acupuncture and I kind of was thinking, who am I hearing? Like, and again, it's almost like when I hear a thought, I don't even hear anything. It's like just this thought that appears somewhere in my awareness. And what I was thinking today is kind of like how many experiences I've had since being a human being that have impacted me in choosing what I believe about myself and deciding what I view about the world and deciding what is wrong and what is right. And I even noticed myself when we just went to get food in Austin. We walked into this place it's a place that's very like everyone's just themselves. That means people are looking different than each other. Like there's not a conformity going on. It's a very open-minded place and we went there to get food. I'm not sure if my explanation is even doing it justice, but like I felt discomfort come up in me when I was looking at the people around me. And I was kind of like, oh, something about that scares me to see these people who I guess are just themselves. Maybe their hair is really long. Maybe they're wearing unconventional clothing. And it's like, why are there times when that makes me uncomfortable? And then there's times when it doesn't. And I guess today I just really observed it. I really observed that thought. And now go to the next step of I'm able to question it. I feel like now when you're more relaxed and thoughts come up, you can really go, that was weird. That's weird. That I think that about myself. It almost doesn't even make sense. But I think the experience of it, when we don't have any other experiences that tell us otherwise, those thoughts are all we know. So of course I'm going to believe that I'm a loser and I shouldn't post on social media because nothing's ever proved me otherwise. And I remember one time I had like this huge realization where I was like, holy shit. So you're meaning to tell me everything I ever thought about myself was created by me and wasn't real? That I'm not this person that people looks at and thinks is a certain way? Like this like physical feeling I've had in my body throughout my life of just thinking I'm less than. So you mean to tell me that was all me who created that? And it was, but it's also being around a lot of people who are also in their heads and comparing themselves and don't know where their value is coming from. So that leads to us also internalizing, oh, that energy and those interactions. Like there's a collective society and we're constantly being impacted by these experiences we have with other people. And that's why when we go to the retreat and like we have these experiences where people who are so open-minded, what they really are is they're not judging themselves. So I guess to answer my question of like when we went to get food from this place, I guess I was judging myself a little bit today. There was a fear coming out there of this life that I feel like I'm, the spiritual life. Do I have to grow my hair to the floor to be awake? And I think spirituality is an interesting thing on this journey because it's another identity you can really heavily attach to. So sometimes I guess I see things around me and maybe I feel pressured.
Well, it's interesting because everything you're describing, it's just thoughts. It's not the experience itself. And there can just be one experience in this moment right now. But if there's 100 people here, there's going to be 100, I guess, different experiences. So there is no objective experience. But I guess the more you let go of attachment to your thoughts, the more you are going to be grounded in reality. And there is only one reality. And it is possible to be in this moment, this reality right now, and just see it without any biases, I think. Like I think of the times that I've met people and you are just like, you kind of get it. You get it that like everything is kind of an illusion. So I think you can look at it in two ways of you're caught up in this thought and you're around a bunch of people who are also caught up in this thought. So you're all having a separate experience. Or you can be in a group where everyone can recognize that thoughts are just an illusion that they're in. Real thoughts are just an illusion. And that they know how to observe those thoughts and not let them influence their reality. And it's that experience that makes me think of like the retreat, especially when you're heightened on a psychedelic, you're going to be more in the same reality because you're not thinking about yourself. But we can train our brains to not think about ourselves in a day-to-day way, which I feel like is what I keep teetering in between. And when we did go to this place for lunch, there was these shops set up for the Sunday festival. And there were these guys selling something with, I think, cannabis or something medicinal, plant-wise. And I just walked by and they were like, hey, they weren't trying to sell me anything. But in that moment, I was like, oh, like they're in reality right now. I could just tell by the way they said hi, like, hey, like, how's it going? It's the difference between thinking of walking through your high school on picture day where everyone's thinking about themselves and how they look and what outfit they have and do they have a pimple. And when everyone's thinking about themselves like that, it doesn't leave room for real connection. Because real connection comes when you're not thinking about yourself and you're just experiencing reality. So this is an interesting topic because I feel like this is something that I teeter in between. I think this is where you can get to when you slow down a little bit. You start to recognize, right, what is really here versus am I just thinking about myself? How this is uncomfortable, or I can't relax, or, if you can bypass thinking about yourself and let go of a lot of those concerns and like check into this moment. And a lot of relief comes from checking into this moment because you're not caught up in the mind then, if you're really in this moment.
Yeah. What's actually happening in reality right now, right here, right now, whatever you're doing, is not what's going on in your mind that's telling you all these stories of this is what's happening and this means this about me and this person intentionally just gave me a bad look and they must think this shirt I have on is bad, so I'm going to go home and change that shirt. There used to be times where if someone looked at me the wrong way, like walking on the street, I would get so insecure. And I think there was like a few times where I went home and changed my outfit. Dead ass.
Well, of course, the more you're just thinking about yourself, the more you think everyone around you is thinking about you. And the less you're thinking about yourself, the more you're willing to go up to someone and be like, hey, how are you? Because you're not thinking about yourself. You're just experiencing the moment and reality for what it is, which is constant opportunity. It could be for one person, I need to go home and change my shirt. It could be for another person, that person looks really nice, I'm going to go say hey. It's all just based off of, are you thinking about yourself right now? And is that getting in the way of you really living your life how you want to live it? Which is, for all of us, connected. We all want to feel belonging and connection. Every single one of us. And it's funny because thinking about ourselves is what divides us. And division is what keeps us separate. When we all just want to be a part of something. And it's hard to be a part of something if you're thinking about yourself. But then you have that whole other branch of clubs that you have to pay for to get access to. So you can meet people who are like you, who are also thinking about themselves, who are also purchasing a membership because they want how they see themselves to be reflected back to them. And I wouldn't call that authentic connection. I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. I'm just saying there's different types of connection. And with different types of connection, there are going to be more intimate types of connection that are based in truth. And by truth, I mean reality. And I think truth and reality are two things that I'm very interested in right now because I firsthand know what it's like to live in an illusion and to think everything is great, but then to be hit with a truth and to have everything fall down. And at the same time that it's terrifying, it's also freeing. And I don't know how common it is to have an experience that makes you see things as they actually are. Maybe when someone tells you a hidden secret that's been in the family for years that reveals a truth, or in a relationship it ends, or a friendship ends, where someone tells you, you actually hurt me. And you see the realities of how things have been. And there's truth in that. So while it's painful, hardships, these things that oftentimes we want to avoid because they're painful, they're the exact thing that shows us truth, which allows us to see ourselves truthfully for the better and for the worse. But that's what allows for us to have real and deep connection with ourselves. And then when we're not in the illusion, that's what allows us to have real and deep connection with others who are seeing themselves in their own truth. And truths aren't easy to face about yourselves. It's easier to create stories about that girl doesn't like me because she's looking at my shirt weird. It's way easier to live life like that. But I would debate that it's not easier because you don't actually get to live. When in reality, you might think, wow, okay, the truth here is that I'm insecure in my body because I think that I look bad because I think that I'm not good enough. And that's something that I deeply carry with me everywhere I go. And it creates these stories like this girl hates me because the way she looks at me. When in reality, I have to learn how to love myself. And I have to face the pain of what it means to feel like I'm not worthy. And it's not until we do that that we're actually able to see us for who we really are, love. It's like then we go back out into the world and we actually experience it. And it's hard. It's really, 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 really uncomfortable to see ourselves for our truth. It sucks. But it also is what allows us to deepen into a much more meaningful life.
The word truth is interesting because we say like we have to face the truth, we have to face our truths. And the only truth in existence, if we're talking about existence in this very moment, looking outside right now, I see the trees, I see the sky, I see Daisy. Hi, Daisy. I see the plants that we recently cleaned because we don't know how to take care of plants and we're trying to figure that out, but that's okay. I see the tripod, I see the computer, I see the table that we eat dinner at and we don't know if we even want to keep it, along with those other furniture that we don't know if we want to keep because we realized we bought it all impulsively. There's all this stuff here. And the moment's happening. The moment just happened. There's another moment. Just happened. Another moment. And that's your life. Like moment to moment to moment to moment to moment. And it's almost like when we live so caught up in our head, we live, again, it's like there's this book of our life. And within the book are these reoccurring stories we tell ourselves every day. I'm not good enough. I'll never be able to do that. I need to react right now. I need to get angry. I need to get frustrated. This situation is not good enough for me. I should be somewhere else right now. I'm uncomfortable. I'm resisting. I'm not here. Like, it all comes back to just not being here. And that can really lead you to missing out on the entire point of this life. And I guess what I'm seeing is just like it's really hard sometimes, especially for me being in a new city and just feeling like there's so much unknown everywhere. And like the other day I was just like, should we move back? Like, oh, like it's so hard to go through change because I just don't know. And then because I don't know, it's so easy to then go and look to the mind and look to all the stories that I used in the past to try to figure out and try to understand what all this means. Do I want to move in a few months? Do I want to stay here? Do I want to, just trying to think about the future. Again, thinking the future will be the thing that saves me. That future moment, if I do decide to live somewhere else besides Austin, or even if I move back to New York. Is that going to save me from the reality that life is painful and that I have to face these emotions, what feels like daily at this point, that I have to face all of the habitual thought patterns of my mind, that this morning I was just like, does this mind ever stop? Like it felt like it was like overwhelming in that moment. Like, does it ever stop? And it's like, yeah, just this human experience is bizarre. It's so bizarre. And the reality of it is like nothing is going to make it less bizarre no matter where I live. Maybe I'll be a little more comfortable, but I would still be avoiding. And I guess it's just really uncomfortable when you're not avoiding shit anymore. It's really, really, really uncomfortable to sit in the discomfort of I want to react and respond so badly, or I want to just throw in the towel like I always do. But the alternative is sitting with myself, and sitting with myself seems to be so uncomfortable for some reason. Why am I so scared of myself? I don't know. And I think that's something I'm trying to figure out right now. As I spend more time with myself and as I spend more time alone, just seeing like there's parts of me I'm scared of. I'm scared. But why? And how much of that is just living in the mind and not actually just being here? It's crazy how being here sounds so simple. It's not. It's the hardest thing ever to truly see this moment empty of the perception and the idea and the story that you're assigning to it, to see this moment for what it is, actually what it is, to see your life for what it is. Like, it's just hard, but it's possible.
Well, life is like an ocean where the waves are coming in for high tide and they're washing out. They're washing in, they're washing out. I was listening to a meditation this morning, and it was talking about how lobsters, the title of the meditation was Lobsters. I was like, this will be interesting. But she only mentioned ones where lobsters have a shell that they grow, and then they can no longer grow anymore because the shell is stopping their follicles in their skin from expanding anymore. So they have to shed the shell entirely. And by being submerged in the salt water, it allows them to quite literally grow a new shell. And they keep doing this process over and over and over again. As they continue to grow and get bigger, they just are naked for a while and they grow a new shell. My point in saying this is that we can always look to nature for how other things within our intelligence exist. And you always see them weaning and waning. There's always a flow of back and forth. And this would be an interesting segment to explore, of looking at these lessons, talking about this, because there's just so much to learn from nature. But in our culture, it's normalized. Okay, you wake up every day, you have your cup of coffee. You expect that cup of coffee to hit you the same way every day. You wake up, you have your routine. You do the same thing every day. And that's how I always lived my life. But I'm seeing now how each day is different. And we can't force ourselves to feel the same way every day. And that never dawned on me, that we weren't supposed to feel the same way every day, because that wasn't productive. Because that made life harder. And it's interesting how I entirely missed the point for so long of focusing so much on the output versus focusing on the experience. And the experience is always going to be interesting if we're trying to show up, do our best, whatever that looks like every single day. It might look different every single day, but we're not focused on the output, the external. We're focused on taking care of ourselves internally, and what happens externally happens. Oftentimes, the difference between worry and not worry, it's not going to change the outcome by that much. Right, if at all. If at all, that's kind of what I meant to say. But it's like the way that you see a gardener putting a plant into the ground with such love and care, watering it, making sure it's getting enough sunlight. That's how we should treat ourselves every single day. But we don't. I don't. I'm trying to slow down and focus on that. But we can't expect to push ourselves to go to a 6 a.m. workout class every single day and go and get our coffee and go to the office and go and crank through everything. And plenty of people do live their lives like that. But I'm just seeing that you don't have to live your life like that. And life can be incredibly rewarding if you focus more on your inside versus getting your value from these things. I'm better now because I went to that early morning workout class. And I'm satisfied because I got a coffee. And now I'm going to my job in this city. And I'm pushing myself so hard because I'm getting value from that. And I'm saying this because you can do all of these things, but the experience changes entirely when you focus on your experience of doing it and focus on the moment, when you're engulfed in the moment, because that's reality. When we get lost in that state of what's happening right now. I think I'm in that right now as I'm talking. And, you know, it's with performance things, it's so easy for judgments to come up. I had a judgment earlier being like, we have X amount of listeners, but do they listen to 1 minute and then exit out? Are we talking to no one? Because everyone hates this and thinks it's weird and it's not good. And it's like, wait, but I'm like, that doesn't matter. That's not the point. I'm relaxed. I'm on this journey of relaxing and learning to enjoy to do something because simply I enjoy doing it. And that's what art is. Just doing it for the love of doing it. You're not thinking about, will the person who's on the receiving end of this, will it make sense to them and will they like it? I'm going to curate this so that they like it. And it's like, how do you know what someone else likes? All you know is what you like. All you know is what is true to you. So all you can do is be true to you. That's all you can ever do.
Yeah, but it's like, do you even know what you like, or what you think you like is based on what society told you? And it's like, if we're striving to create something, just to be a certain way. Like throughout this conversation, I'm noticing more and more as I podcast how much I judge it. I judge it from the beginning, in the middle, every minute. Is this making sense? What am I saying? And then I go back and listen. And I'm like, that's really profound. Wow, this episode is really helping me right now. And that's because when you talk in a conversation, you're letting go. Presumably, you're letting go. But I find myself so often when we're podcasting, like I can't be present. Or I rotate between, I just don't feel like what I'm saying has any value. And the more I continue to create, the more I write, the more we podcast, the more I share my thoughts, and the more I go back and reflect from a neutral standpoint, from a relaxed, non-anxious standpoint, the more I can see that I have a lot to say. And it's like today, going back to being in acupuncture today, when I started to drift off, and I was in this place where I was like, oh, that's truth. Like all of those thoughts I was having an hour ago before I got to the acupuncture place, and in the car, it puts to perspective how much anxiety I have normally, or how much anxiety I'm normally experiencing. Like the more time passes, the more you do something over and over and over again, the more you can have and build perspective to understand that like the thoughts that are coming up are just creatures of habit. They're just repetition in your mind. They don't reflect the truth. And truth is like, it's like this, there's something in this vessel, in this being, in this body that we have, that you can go and pick up a paintbrush and a mountain will end up on the canvas. How you can go sing a song or create or talk. Right now I'm talking. I'm not thinking about talking. I'm just talking. And I find that I struggle a lot in overthinking so much. And that's the power of this podcast, is that I get the chance to learn about, wow, how am I? How do I show up when I'm creating stuff? How do I view myself? And it's like I'm becoming more and more aware of how much I judge myself in every single moment that I express myself. And it's almost like my state changed. Like we were having this whole day and I was so relaxed. And then we came to podcasts. And I think my state changed, and I watched my state change a little bit. And I think I watched myself enter a state of overthinking and overanalyzing, and showing that maybe I do have expectations when we pull up the mics and we talk. Maybe I do have a lot of micro judgments about that this isn't good enough, and that it will never be good enough, and that I'm just speaking and sounding like a moron and no one cares about me, and why am I just coming up here being so unstructured? I'm not, who do I think I am? I'm not like anyone of value. And then having the clarity to go, wow, you just keep proving yourself wrong every time.
Well, that's the beauty of the reminder that the best art, whatever you consider your art form to be, is made out of someone's truth of their expression, and not thinking about how it's going to make sense to someone else. And I totally agree. For so long, I was so concerned. Do people like this podcast? Do people resonate with it? Am I getting validated from it that I'm good enough? And that's gotten less and less and less, but it still rears its head sometimes. But I did catch myself, because you said it, but I was thinking it too a little bit earlier for a portion of the conversation. And I was reminded of that line that I mentioned of the best artists create work for themselves and no one else. And that was something that I read in The Creative Act, the book we've both been reading. And I feel like I understand what that means on a visceral level, because true, authentic expression that is innate to oneself, that is pure, that is untainted, that is not trying to be anything, by being in that state of creating in that state, it allows me to connect with myself. It allows me to connect with oneness. It allows me to connect with reality. So why wouldn't it allow someone else to connect with that? Not that that's what my thought is, because you can never control how someone's going to perceive something. All you can control is your experience doing it. And I want to look up the definition of art: the expression or application of human creative skills and imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting or sculpture, producing works to be appreciated primarily for their beauty or emotional power. Another definition is the various branches of creative activity, such as painting, music, literature, and dance. And I would disagree with that last one. I don't think it's just that. I feel like art is... Buddhism definition. Right, I'll look up the Buddhist definition. Okay, the definition of art within the branch of philosophy. Art is an expression of our thoughts, emotions, intuitions, and desires. But it is even more personal than that. It's about sharing the way we experience the world, which for many is an extension of personality. It is the communication of intimate concepts that cannot be faithfully portrayed by words alone.
Right. It is an expression. Wow. It is an expression of the way we experience reality. And I think we're almost like, why don't we talk about how we experience this life? We're always talking about, I don't even know, made up things, but not how we experience life.
That is what makes art so interesting, is that no one can create what you innately have the desire to create. Because I love how that definition said it's emotion, it's thoughts, experiences, all expressed through whatever form. So to receive something from anyone who is honestly portraying their feelings and thoughts and emotions of going through this experience, that is inherently unique. And of course, not everyone's going to love art. Not everyone loves classical music. Not everyone loves photos. Not everyone loves Picasso, these classic painters. Not everyone's going to love it. And oftentimes, art is something that is, at least we read this definition somewhere or something about art where it was mentioned that art oftentimes that is created, that is profound, that makes a big impact, it cannot be understood by those around them. It's usually later decades or it's later centuries that it is thought of, because art pushes the barriers of how we perceive the world, of how we allow ourselves to see things. And art oftentimes is something that does push that and does help people see it differently, which I think is really interesting.
Which is why it's so important to express yourself and to have outlets in your life that help connect with everything that's in you. Because if we're always taking the thoughts at face value, if I sit down and I literally felt like I have nothing to say, which is showing me something interesting. Like, we're recording this on a Sunday, and the weekdays and weekends don't mean that much to me anymore. They're kind of the same, but I do treat Saturday and Sunday different. Like, normally I'm not doing any work. And it was interesting to kind of integrate from that to doing quote unquote work, podcasting, which is not even work, but it requires me to express. It requires me to work through like a conversation. You're working through something. And I guess sitting down, I felt incapable of that. I felt like I had nothing to say. And it's like, that's just the mind, literally. And this is why so many of my weekends in the past felt empty, because it lacked expression. This helps me connect with myself by doing this, by podcasting, by chatting. And it's so interesting doing it on a Sunday, because I'm like, compared to the whole day, like, this is different. This act, it's of expressing and talking and going deep. It's one you could easily miss out on doing if you're not making the effort to do it.
Well, it's something that forces you to relax into insecurities that come up. It requires you to face stories you're telling yourself about the outcome of this. Forces you to relax, which you could say, I guess, is work. It is not easy, but it is deeply rewarding. I'm sure you feel great now. I'm sure you feel more grounded. I know I do. And I just, as you were talking about that, I wrote something down because I was like, that's a good way to describe our podcast, is a conversation where we work through the mind and into reality. 'Cause that's just what we did. We work our way back to reality through conversation, of questioning, of bantering about this thing and that thing, then switching it to the next, all in the name of coming back to reality. And I'm realizing right now, I think that we have subconsciously been afraid, I'll speak for myself, have subconsciously been afraid of not knowing how to box this podcast, not knowing how to box what we're doing, not able to look around and see several different people doing it. Is what we're doing making sense? What are we doing? But I feel so confident in what we're doing because I want to let go of what we think anything should be. And I want to embrace it is what we're doing with this conversation. This has been an exceptional conversation for me, a groundbreaking one for me because I didn't judge anything too intensely. I just observed it and kept moving on. And I guess I just more so had a breakthrough as we were talking that it doesn't matter how anyone else perceives it because it will find the right people. But that's not going to change anything about me. It's not going to change any of my value. This is my life and this is my window of my life. And this is me expressing my life. And my life is a piece of work because all of our life is a blank canvas and we get to design it however we want. We can rip up the canvas and shred it and paint ourselves. You know, like there are no rules. I feel like the first rule of creation is that you shouldn't follow anyone else's rules. And I'm feeling excited by that. I'm feeling inspired by this conversation. And to say that I started it talking about, should I buy 100% cotton shirts? Is that something I should put time into? And that is something that I'm thinking about, that like, I want to wear things that are relaxed. They are loose, you know? So it all comes back together because there are no rules. And I think that is very exciting. And this is a conversation, just to wrap it up, it just shows me that there's no right way to do anything. We think that this podcast should be structured like an English thesis paper on a book that we read. We think that there should be a thesis and then we follow it. And it's like, who told you that? You're conditioning through the education system? Is that what everyone else does? Why should we do that? So I think we have to keep just following our hearts, keep following this journey that we're on, because we know that it's true in me. You know it's true in you. And it's an interesting one. So I want to keep expanding it. And I want to keep, I guess, pushing the boundary that I thought I always had to follow. That's where I always got my value, was having a certainty to reach to next. So I look forward to continuing to work through our minds and back into reality.
I'm ready to do another. Wow. It's always really great to give yourself the chance to work through something creatively and in life, like to see things through. And even though I judge this entire podcast, now I feel like, right, like, there's nowhere to get. It's just expression. And that in and of itself is enough. There doesn't need to be a point. It's the feeling state that we're showing up. It's getting up here and just expressing that we don't know what we're doing. And that we're just trying to connect. And we're just trying to share that. And that is deeply profound for me in a lot of ways. That feels like my life's purpose of connecting and helping others feel seen. So If this podcast is anything, it's a platform to help others know they're not alone and show parts of me that maybe will help other people see parts of themselves. Because I also read in the Creative Act, art allows people to understand parts of themselves that they never knew was there. It helps them see themselves and to learn about viewpoints of the world that they hear it and they're like, I thought I read that before, but you never did. It's because it's all the same mind. And of course, if we're not just letting ourselves flow and just talk about all these things that we know, we're forgetting we're all connected. Everyone else will resonate with truth. But when you're trying to script it and say the right thing and make it flow, you're controlling it. True flow and art, when you go to paint Picasso painting or whatever, these beautiful pieces of art that you see in these museums, you're not thinking when you do it. You don't have a goal when you're doing it. You don't have an endpoint when you're doing it. You're just painting. So too, let this conversation just be one where we're painting and expressing, and it doesn't have to come with restrictions and guideposts and rules and credentials, and you have to sound a certain way to be a podcaster, and it just doesn't have to be so serious. It can just be fun. So if anything, I'm learning how to have fun again and how to create things without putting so much pressure on what it means about me and my worth. To be able to write and not care and not think that has anything to do with who I am. So much to say. So yeah, to the listeners, if you made it this far, you get it. If you didn't, you'll know that there's nothing to get, really, because it all just is a continuous expression of reality, just being ourselves and taking each moment at a time, moving outside the mind. So to tie up from where we started, living an intentional life really is one where you're allowing yourself to live with intention. And intention meaning you're choosing to not listen to all the limitations that would tell you, don't keep talking. You have nothing to say.
So thanks all for sticking around if you made it to this point, and stay tuned for the other conversation we'll be recording the following day after you record this one for Thursday, and then Tuesday. And then the following Thursday is where the post-retreat thoughts will be coming straight to you all. So that's 3 podcasts from now. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your evening. And don't take your thoughts as fact. And don't forget to enjoy this moment. Have a good one, everyone.